Susan Crabtree. She's a Real Clear Politics White House and national political correspondent. Susan, good to have you back with us.
It's wonderful to be with you again, Vince.
Okay, so up until the last, up until recently, we've had Ron Rowe, right, as the head of the Secret Service, and now we've got a new director coming in?
That's right. Donald Trump tapped his, basically the boss of his campaign detail, that he's a loyalist, been literally at his back for the last 2 to 3 years throughout the entire campaign. He is also in that iconic photo, one of the first Secret Service agents to jump to put his body in the line of fire during that Butler rally and try to hold Donald Trump down. But
yes,
they couldn't manage to do that. Donald Trump popped back up and pumped his fist and said, "Fight, fight, fight." That's the man to his right in that iconic photo with the sunglasses on.
Yep.
That is Sean Curran. And he is also very well known for repeatedly requesting additional security assets that's being denied by the former Secret Service director, Kimberly Cheeto. So it's a lot of just desserts right now.
So a guy like that, this is where you can help me understand a lot of this. If he's the head of the president's security detail, one would have to assume that he also has some say in whether or not things are still too vulnerable, right? Like, in other words, that July 13th assassination attempt, did Sean Curran fail in any way? And I don't know the guy. I'm just asking because I really want to make sure that this is the right guy for the job. Did he fail in any way to say, hey, what's the deal with that roof being unprotected?
Well, yes, a lot of people do fault him because he's a boss. And where does the buck stop? Because the site agent that was responsible for covering that AGR building did not do so properly. She did not assign a specific place for the local law enforcement partners, counter snipers, to locate themselves and so they located themselves inside. This has been ongoing. We've gone over and over the details of this. The congressional investigations have all confirmed that she was the one that was a problem, and then her supervisor, Nick Menster, also didn't check her work, and he's also on the Donald Trump detail. So there's critics, including Dan Bongino, one of your colleagues, that are saying, this isn't the right pick, and why should anybody that was involved in Butler get a promotion? And shouldn't we be reevaluating all the people shouldn't there be some disciplinary action? Because there's been absolutely zero. Nobody's been fired. Nobody has been reassigned until Sean Curran was elevated. So, there are some misgivings. He is very well liked within the agency, known as someone who has a level head, and it's a very good agent in terms of his performance level, his commitment. But there was failures that day, and he was the boss of that detail.
Well, President Trump clearly trusts him, though. And obviously that must be a relationship that's really developed with each passing day, especially at that Butler rally, as Sean Curran used his own body to try and keep President Trump alive. And that's a big deal. So, how far does the president's trust go in bringing about some calm about this guy being the right pick?
Well, that is the issue, right? Premier to all, Donald Trump is choosing trust. His value is prioritizing trust in his selection of his cabinet members, his new administration. He's learned from the problems of his first administration where the knives were out and people were, backbite. There was so much backbiting and dissension within the ranks. So he is putting a premium on trust. And certainly, but we've seen that happen with other Secret Service agents and then directors in the past, that there's concern that there's too much trust placed in the people that protect them, and that those relationships should not then move into a managerial role of the entire agency. But the agency has been so plagued with crony corruption, DEI problems, lack of training, low morale, because, white experienced agents have been leaving the Secret Service in droves, veteran agents. So we have a lot of inexperience and a lot of DEI hires that, and in fact, I'm being told that the woman that was in charge of the site that day, the site security, was a DEI hire. So there is so much mopping up and huge overhaul that the Secret Service needs that this move is a step in the right direction. There's no doubt that they're calling today Bloody Friday because there was 10 people on what they call the 8th floor, the leadership floor of the Secret Service, who were told to retire or face reassignment.
Okay, so tell me about the status of Ron Rowe then. So Ron Rowe was Kim Cheadle's deputy director. Kim Cheadle leaves. He becomes the acting director. Now, where is he going? Is he among the people who are leaving the agency? What's happening with him?
Well, I think that's a very good question. And he put out a letter last night, which is a tradition in the Secret Service for the directors when they exit the job, saying goodbye. And it was all positive. It was almost strangely positive. He said wonderful things about Sean Curran's leadership abilities and his track record, but he made no mention of the toxic and outright turmoil, toxic culture and outright turmoil that has been plaguing the Secret Service for years, and especially after this 2 assassination attempts, one where he was at the helm, Ron Rowe. So he's going to have to retire or get reassigned to a lower role, and that's there's going to be a lot of you're going to have to suck it up and go move into a lower role, and that could be awkward, certainly.
Yeah.
So all eyes are on Rowe. He's definitely one of the 10 that I've been told. There are some misgivings about some of the people that are included, as you can imagine, but 10 members I'm told most of them are assistant directors, are out in some way. They're not fired, but they are getting pushed out.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, right? Because this was an epic failure on the part of the Secret Service, as there were multiple assassination attempts and one strike of the President of the United States by a bullet. I mean, you've got to change the leadership. And so we're watching some of that happen right now. This DEI that you mentioned, that you have agents that were hired or leaders that were hired in some capacity because of DEI programs. First of all, that is another explanation as to why you want to get rid of DEI. You don't want that to hang as a shadow over your head, that people think you're only there because of that. But the other thing is, I kind of wonder what President Trump's executive actions this week, stripping DEI out of these agencies, in particular the Secret Service, is that helping morale? Is that something that's measurable that you've been able to detect?
Great question. I was given all of the internal websites for DEI, a list of all the personnel that are involved in DEI programs. Within, I would say, not even hours of that initiative, that executive order coming out. So it certainly boosts the mood of many agents, and I'm not talking just white males. There are agents of color who have talked to me, different ethnicities, who said, I don't like having, like you just said, I don't like being considered that my skin color had anything to do with my performance.
Exactly.
These agents have trained and they're committed. It's a really difficult job. You're away from your family a lot. You have to put your life on the line. But then there's times where it's just it's not that engaging of a job because you're just sitting there waiting for something to happen. And then when something happens, you have to react, and you have to be extremely well trained at that moment to seize the moment and put your body in the line of fire and protect the people that allow us to have a continuity of government.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of positive reaction, some misgivings about some people on the list because they're getting lumped in to really some crony corruption that has been. I mean, I have investigated a lot of crony corruption in my time in D.C., but I am still galled by the level, and we haven't even scratched the surface. But I will still be following this in what we've seen so far. I'm telling you, we haven't even scratched the surface. They have so much work to be done.
Man, well, I hope they can do it. Hey, before we let you go, there's one other story I know that you're following very closely this week, which is this wildfire relief and what's going on in California. The president paying California a visit today. What do you make of President Trump and what he's had to say about how they can get things fixed in California, and Governor Gavin Newsom in California, who seems to be interested in meeting with the president today? You know, what do you make of that relationship?
I think it's sort of a hilarious turnaround that Gavin Newsom was within 24 hours of the Trump victory was anointing himself the leader of the resistance, and then he had to temper his comments when there's his whole state is on display, all the problems and gross mismanagement of California and environmental priorities misplaced are on horrendous display right now. So he had to temper his rhetoric. Yeah. Meanwhile, he did not cancel his special session that was gearing towards Trump-proofing California, he says. And I think it's funny because you have the Attorney General right now in California suing the Trump administration for the birthright citizenship, getting rid of that and that executive order. And meanwhile, Gavin Newsom is trying to come hat in hand to Donald Trump for the disaster aid, and they're in this sort of fight over what caused the wildfires and what should be done in California. It's funny. It's an extremely strange dynamic. Gavin Newsom likes to be he's positioned himself as sort of the nemesis of Donald Trump in his first term, and wanted to play that role again. But guess what? Your state is on fire.
Yes. Yeah, and people are still trying to flee it, and it's ungodly expensive. What has Gavin Newsom done that's improved that state at all? It's just been an awful track record of failure. And the whole reason why he's going back and forth between these idiotic political gestures is because he's still, everyone can tell, thinks that he's going to be president of the United States one day. And I'm looking at all of this destruction in his state, much of it the product of his mismanagement of it, and thinking, how is your track record going to result in you successfully even winning the nomination?
Yeah, it is. He is in a different reality. He honestly believes what comes out of his mouth, even though most of it is half truths. As you know, I have a book coming out in March. I'm a native Californian. I care deeply about the state where I grew up. It was a wonderful place to grow up. My parents, I was in a middle-class family, but I really was an Air Force brat, and my mom was a teacher. And we excelled here. We did very well. My family did very well here. We weren't making millions. We didn't live in Pacific Palisades, and we had a wonderful life. And I wrote this book with Peter Schweitzer's group, a research director, Jed McFadder, and it's called Fool's Gold, the radicals, traitors, and con artists that killed the California dream and now threaten us all. And I got to say, when I saw these wildfires breaking out in 2017 and 2018, and we just kept tolerating it, the state just kept tolerating it, I knew I needed to write a book, and it has an entire wildfire chapter in it, and it goes into the reasons, all the reasons, the myriad reasons behind this gross mismanagement and these terrible misplaced priorities of California putting literally what Donald Trump said. It's funny that he came out with an executive order about it, or initiative, new action, I guess they were calling it, putting fish over people. That's what California is. Pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, it's really awful. And now we're seeing the vicious consequences of that. Susan Crabtree from Real Clear Politics, thank you as always for being focused on all the right issues. Always so good to talk to you.